Well, thank you. What are microaggressions? Microaggressions are more than insults and sensitive comments. Uh, excuse me, put that down. Just or just someone trying to be funny, and I was trying to be funny that night, and there was nothing funny. There's something very specific, kinds of remarks, questions, and or actions that are painful because they have to do with a person's membership in a group that's discriminated against or are subject to stereotypes. And I was being very, and I was playing to a stereotype because anytime women get together, they must be talking about men, right? And that's not always true. Sometimes they're just talking about their lives. They're not even talking about us, you know. And a key part of what makes them so disconcerting is that they happen casually, frequently, and often without any harm intended in everyday life. So, in all honesty, I wasn't trying to harm you. I was just trying to be funny, and it was nothing funny about that. And so, but out of that, it really taught me something that night. It really taught me about what women go through just by going to their car, right? And so just by just you have to really plan it when you even leave the house. Now I'm a black man and I do plan my day. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely plan my day because I have to plan. What if a police officer pulls me over? How am I going to conduct myself? But women do more than there's more to it for women, especially if you're a woman of color. So you not only worry about police, you worry about just men harassing you and unwanted attention, right? So when we're talking about microaggressions, and again, we could be microaggressive. I could be microaggressive to a group of black people, black students, and by making little jokes and that the other black students don't find funny. And so we need to really check our behavior, our biases, the stereotypes we've been told, because if we really look at our lives, and especially as Americans, we're American. If you're an American and as somebody who lived overseas and lived in Korea, Koreans would always tell me, I could tell you're an American. And I could be with the other white guy, and Koreans didn't see me as black, they saw me as American. And it was first time in my life when I was first time in my life, just because it was first time I went and lived in another country for any period of time, that I wasn't perceived by my skin color, I was perceived by my culture, by my nationality. So when we're talking about microaggressions, we're their everyday slights. So Dr. Daryl Sue, he teaches at Teachers College, and he really does study this and just behaviors. He's a psychologist. He says that everyday slights, indignities, put downs, and insults that people of color, women, LGBTQ populations, and those who are marginalized experience in their day-to-day interactions with people. So even religion, right? We had a discussion one day in class, and there was a group, and I'm not going to say which group they were, but the other Christian groups were saying that their cult, this other group, is not it's not really Christianity, and people didn't realize how insulting it was, because there were some people in the class that belonged to this religious group. And so we have to be careful, because again, a lot of times when we're talking about these type of issues, we're not just looking at what's on the outside skin or gender. There's other things like religion. There's other things like sexual gender, and when I say gender, I'm talking about, I had a student one semester who self-identified as a male, but when I looked at him, it was a female. And so I had to be very careful. It taught me a lot on my pronouns and just being respectful, because I know as professors, we tend to say things like, well, I had one colleague who said, no, I'm just calling them by their what's on their birth certificate. And I remember telling him, and this was an older professor and getting ready to retire, because that's why they were saying they were going to retire, because the world was changing. And I remember saying to this gentleman, I just remember telling him, I'm like, why do you even care what the student wants to be called? As long as they're not saying call them a BIT, a hoe, and all these other stuff. You know, if a student self-identifies as a male, may be born Mary, but wants to be called Luke, what harm does that do to any of us? Right? It doesn't do anything. Microaggressions, although they're seemingly small and sometimes innocent offenses, can take real psychological toll on the mental health of their recipients. This toll can lead to anger, depression, and can even lower work productivity and problem solving abilities. And you do see this. A lot of times when you see students of color sitting in the back, there's a reason why they don't sit in the back because they want to. A lot of times for students of color, they sit in the back because they're trying to gauge you and see where you're at, because they're sitting in the back because they're like, because I had students, I had a group of students of color tell me, a lot of times when we go into these classroom settings, what we're doing is we're waiting to see how the professor is, because if they're going to insult us and make little comments and statements, then I'm just going to zone out and I don't want to be up in front, because if I'm in the back, I can just blend in and do what I got to do to pass the class or even drop. And that's something we have to think about. We have to think about our behaviors. We have to think about the things we say. We got to think before we speak a lot of times. And I'm a talker. I like to talk, and I've really learned a lot by teaching period, by teaching post-secondary education. I have learned a lot. Plus, they can affect the work or school environment, making it more hostile, less validating, and perpetuate stereotype threat, the fear of confirming existing stereotypes that one group, which can have a negative impact on the confidence and achievement. Yeah, all Asians are just good students. They're smart. All Black students are lazy. They don't do anything. You know, I mean, it's those type of statements. You don't have to be, and you don't have to say Black, or you don't have to say Asian. You can just say you're kind. You're kind of people. You know, and so it's this type of behavior. We have to check ourselves before we check anybody else. And the point of this, and the reason why I like doing the microaggressions, because I'm constantly looking at myself. I'm constantly checking myself. I'm constantly learning something new. I'm serious. Like I said, the spectrum of sexuality, it's not just gay, straight, bisexual. You have pansexual, you have demisexual, you have all these different classifications, and we have to respect our students. We have to, because we're paid to do a job, and in that job we give ourselves to Crafton Hills and to the San Bernardino district to do our job. But we should be doing this in our everyday lives. I was just telling Kashonda a while ago, you know, we could talk about doing this at school, but if you're microaggressive in your everyday life, it's going to translate at work. Yes, you're going to be mindful, but at some point it's going to creep out. The things we say about those people, asking a student, is your family illegal? Are they here legally? You know, we shouldn't be asking those questions. We should be always mindful and respectful. There are 3 types of microaggressions. So now I'm gonna go over all 3 with you, and then give you 5 things which we can all do as faculty to help, to be a part of. You know, as an African American, I know the struggle of Black people, and I can even tell you the struggle of other people of color, because it's some of it overlaps, right? But I don't know all the struggles. My family is from America. I'm a descendant of enslaved former Africans and Europeans, right? And so my family is American. I don't know what it's like to have family who might come over here because they're running from gang violence and you know, just poverty in other countries, and trying to get in here, and they get in here and have to live in that type of fear, have to live in fear of getting caught. And I don't know what that's like, but I can be an ally. I can be an accomplice to participate and make sure that they understand that I'm here to help and not be a hindrance to them living a life. Because we got to remember, America, the Pilgrims did not come over here with papers. And so, and look, we can argue immigration all day long. It's how we treat people, right? And that's a major issue right now. So anyway, I'm gonna go over the 3 types of microaggression: micro-assaults, micro-insults, and micro-invalidations. Micro-assault is when a person intentionally behaves in a discriminatory way while not intending to be offensive. An example of a micro-assault is a person telling a racist joke, then saying, "Oh, I was just joking," or making a sexist joke. Oh, I was just joking. Or a homophobic joke. Oh, I was just joking. I didn't mean, no, it's just a joke. You know, I have a cousin that's LGBTQ. I have a cousin, I have a lot of cousins that are women, you know, or I got a black friend, you know, it's still, it's not okay. It's not okay. Now, let me make myself clear. If you have a friend, because my best friend is a white guy, and we have jokes that we run between us, right? Now, he does it with me when it's just him and I, but he would never go into a group of people and make a derogatory statement that other black people might find offensive. And I've been knowing this guy since we were like, he was like 12 and I was like 14. So we go way back, and you know, we go back 30 something years. So we, so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you know, how we as faculty, how we as staff, how we treat our students, and just, and sometimes how our students even treat us, you know? So I have a video I have a quick little video of a micro assault.
Speak English. Is it illegal? Look at this. It's America. Speak English. Speak English. What's your problem? Are they in America? Okay, they should be speaking English. They should be speaking English. They should be speaking English. Are they illegal aliens? They don't speak the language? Okay, why do you care? I wasn't talking to you. I have a right. How am I harassing them? Am I yelling? Oh yeah, okay. Are they illegal? So then go enjoy your lunch. Why are you wearing a mask? Yeah. Really? Okay. Okay. So this guy decided that he's going to come over here and be a social justice warrior. He's a black man, and he's going to protect the brown man from this white woman.
Okay, so now let's talk. I mean, and let's kind of dissect that. I found her funny because she says he's a black man, um, looking at you know, looking defending the brown man, and it's like, well, you, regardless of your skin color, should be defending this brown man. You shouldn't be yelling at him. Bottom line, why do you even care what these people are doing, what language they're speaking? I mean, I've been in the store. I have been in the store where people speak Korean or something, and it doesn't bother me. I don't care. And also, at the end of the day, America does not have a national language. There's no legal language in America. We have to also realize that. So this whole idea that people should speak English, they don't have to speak English. They're not your friend. Why do you care? You know. And so it's these type of behaviors. This woman walking up and yelling at these people, saying things to these people, because they're speaking a different language that she doesn't understand. It's uncalled for. It's uncalled for. A micro insult is characterized by communications that convey rudeness and sensitivity, demean a person's racial heritage and identity. Micro insults represent subtle snubs, frequently unknown to the perpetrator, by clearly conveying a hidden insulting message to the recipient of color, of a different gender, of a different religion. It's this behavior that we have to, and I think it's a way for people to try to connect. Oh, I just want you to know I'm trying to connect. Well, you can connect just by saying good morning, hi, how are you? We don't have to insult people to connect with people, right? And so I think the last time I did this, when I had the technical difficulties, we did this one. So give me a second while this plays through. And I love this one. I always play this one.
Can the volume be higher Oh, is that the highest? I can hardly hear.
I knew it. I was like, she's either Japanese or Korean. But I was leaning more towards Korean.
Amazing.
How chutney? There's a really good teriyaki barbecue place. I actually really like kimchi.
Cool. What about you? Where are you from?
San Francisco.
But where are you from?
No,
Really? Native American?
no, just regular American. Oh, well, I guess my grandparents are from India.
Oh, well. Ah, Captain! What's all this then? Just the moment you get the sporty! Double, toil and trouble! I'm gonna get big Jack the Ripper! Bloody hell! Wicked! Cheerio! I think your people's fish and chips are amazing. Really? Weird? Must be a great thing.
Okay, so when this guy, he was, you know, he didn't mean any harm. He really didn't, and you know, he was just trying to connect. He was just saying, hey, how are you? But again, we don't always have to ask people where they're from. We can just say, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Especially when somebody speaks like they're from the valley, right? You have she clearly was not Korean nationality wise. She was clearly an American. And I tend to argue, and this is just my own personal opinion, and we can debate this if you like. I tend to argue that even if somebody came to the states at 2 years old, right, and they might not be here legally, right, or even if they are, to me they're American by all intents and purposes. They're Americans because they pick up the culture. They act like the rest of us, and she had clearly sounded, again, if I talked to her, that woman on the phone, I wouldn't know what color she was. I wouldn't know her ethnicity. I would know she's a woman, but that's it. I wouldn't know nothing else about her. I wouldn't know if she was Korean or a black or white or anything. I wouldn't know. All I would know is I'm speaking to a woman who apparently is from the United States or Canada, sounds more like an American than Canadian, because you know the Canadian has that aboot stuff. They tend to have that weird stuff at the end. But you can tell she's an American. You can tell she's possibly from California, from the Valley, right? And so I think sometimes he didn't mean any harm, and there was really no harm meant, but but the way he talked to her was very microaggressive, and he, you know, he looked and then when she turned it around on him, he was like, "What? You're kidding? No, not yeah, no. I'm a real American. I'm the you know I'm not the Native American. I'm the real American, right?" When we talk about micro invalidation, I think this tends to happen more than not to with a lot of people. Their verbal comments, behaviors that exclude, negate, or nullify psychological thoughts, feelings, or experimental reality of a person of color, woman. Again, good example, and I didn't have time to look for it, but a couple of weeks ago, I guess on the talk, I don't watch the talk, but it was the talk of the nation because Sharon Osbourne quit the show because of this whole thing with Meghan Markle, Oprah Winfrey, and all that. But apparently, Sharon Osbourne told Cheryl Underwood, "Well, why don't you teach me? You know, and you can't cry. I should be the only one that should be able to cry." And that is micro invalidation. You can't tell somebody how to feel or telling people to get over. Well, I wish those black people would get over racism, over slavery. Get over slavery. Just get over it. You know, telling people those things, you know, instead of really listening and understanding people's experiences. Again, when I first started this, I told you guys about the student that I had some issue that, you know, when she threw in my face, and I didn't have issues with her, she corrected me. She called me out on my microaggression. And I told you how I made the statement to her about how she should, are you guys going to the bathroom talk about some guy? And she's like, no, we're not talking about no guy. We just want to live. I want her to be able to go to the bathroom, feel safe, and not die while she's in the bathroom or be raped while she's in the bathroom. I didn't know, and I didn't mean any harm, but I was still being very microaggressive.
Before you start this video, can you increase your volume? There was one
Okay.
comment that the volume was low.
Okay. Let me see. Thank you very much for telling me. Okay. And this is not going to be on long anyway. So I just want to.
On page 1 to best week ever, and Steve Santagati, author of Code of Honor and the best-selling book The Manual. All right, good to see both of you. Okay, so Amanda, you first. Is too much being made of this video, or what is the message that you get, or that you and your friends and colleagues have been talking about as a result of seeing the video?
Hey
Oh,
everyone,
come
welcome
on.
forward. We are a new kind of doctor's office that's doing primary care differently. Our best
I live this life every day. So
Nice,
for me,
nice.
this is like, and how are you interpreting this? Are you interpreting this as compliments? Are you annoyed by it? Wow, this is not complimentary. Which is funny because I think guys think that by letting you know that they would be interested in sleeping with you, that is a compliment. And actually, it's really just objectifying me when I'm trying to walk in my daily life. I have a whole 15-minute set on stage about this, about God bless you, Ma, about yo, I see you, Ma. You're supposed to be smiling. Women are expected to, the minute we leave the house, we are expected to be smiling and available for whatever men want to say to us. And don't get me wrong, hello is fine. Like, I'm from Grenada in Mississippi. If someone says hello and you don't say hello back, that is actually considered rude. But a lot of these men, they're not just saying hello. They say hello, and when you say hello back, what that means is that's an invitation to now holler at you. I can see you shaking your head, but you are not an expert on this, my brother, because you are not a woman walking in the street. That's who you need.
No, but I am more of an expert. I'm more of an expert than you, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm a guy, and I know how you think more than you guys will ever know. I can't get in a woman's head any more than just like thinking about it. But I'm a guy, and I know why these guys do this. The bottom line is this, ladies. You would not care if all these guys were hot. They would be bolstering your self-esteem, bolstering your ego. There is nothing more that a woman loves to hear is how pretty she is. Now, this particular video speaks for itself. These guys obviously don't have a lot of class, but I'm also very suspicious because this was put together by an ad agency to go viral. So how do we know some of those guys weren't planted?
Right. Okay. So yeah. So now let's get to the argument. It doesn't matter because it doesn't matter. Right. It doesn't matter because even if they were planted, this is actually very accurate.
I agree. I lived in New York
This
City
is
15
incredibly
years.
accurate, and I will. And
So what?
Say that. But what's funny is that you're saying that you know how men think. But your
Yeah,
comment
how
was
could I not?
actually about. Wait. But actually, your comment was about saying how women think. That women
Am I wrong?
hear
Stop me when I'm
compliments from
wrong.
men all day.
Stop
You
me when
are
I'm wrong.
wrong. You are wrong. I stopped you before you started.
Okay, okay.
Does this elicit, I guess, the conversation?
So now, and they kind of go on for a little while longer on this. I find it funny because, he seems like a nice guy, but really, Amanda Seals, I think her name is, she made a valid point. Her point was, you were telling us how women feel. Women want to be told how pretty they are. Women need this validation from men. Well, what if women don't? Seriously, what if women really don't need this validation from men? What if women are dressing up to make themselves feel good? My mother told me that once when I said, why do you need to get your nails done? She said, because I want to feel good. She said, I wasn't doing this for nobody else. I just want to feel good. And that's just so important. So now I'm going to talk about 5 things. And then what I'm going to do after the 5 things is I want to open up for discussion because it's great to listen to me, but I think it's better when we have a discussion. I like roundtables. And if people came to my class, if you ever come to my class, you would see that we have a discussion. And while we're discussing, I'm busy dropping little nuggets about government and about policy and all that. But it helps students. I realize having discussions helps students remember the information better. They do better on their tests. So I like doing discussions. I just think discussions work well. And so these are the 5 things we could do, you could do. Be constantly vigilant of your own biases and fears. Look internally, seriously, seriously. And it's not just about, we can look at, I want to make myself clear. Again, when we're looking at this, when people hear these things, they only hear about race. It's always used about race. That's why I wanted to show other things besides race. And I wanted to show other things besides Black people, because a lot of times when we hear about racism, we only think Black people deal with racism. Boy, but aren't we learning, right? We're learning with Asian Americans going through being assaulted and being attacked, and now they're telling their stories. Hispanic Americans, when Latinos, people in our country, when they have the kids in cages and people start sharing their experience. Look, this is why I'm showing more than just, because it's easy to go down the black-white route. It's real easy here in America to do that. And I can do that all day, and I really could. But we need to also look at our behaviors towards others, right? And seeing more than just about Black and white, but also about male and female, straight and LGBTQ, Christian versus all other religions. Because even though America is not a Christian nation per any document, Christianity is the religion of pretty much of every president so far. They've all claimed to be Christians, and I don't question anybody's religious beliefs, so I'm not going to argue with anybody on that. Seek out interaction with people who differ from you in terms of race, culture, ethnicity, sexuality, religion, and other qualities. Don't be defensive. And that's very important. We have to stop being so defensive when people share information with us. If they correct us, if there's nothing wrong with correction. Be open to discussing your own attitudes, biases, and how they might have hurt others. And in some sense, reveal bias on your part. It's very important that we do this. It's very important to say, hey, I was wrong. I had a student who was transgender who transitioned in the middle of the semester. Like that's why I said Mary and Luke, because the first day of class, it was Mary. By the end of class, Mary was Luke. And so I had to change pronouns on them. But one thing I'll tell you about Luke taught me a lot about being open. Luke taught me a lot about acceptance. Luke also taught me a lot about just asking questions. People are not offended if you're asking a real question, not to challenge and to argue, but to get information. And I will have to let you guys know that student, he really did, he took our class on a journey. It was one of the best semesters I've had because, I mean, just watching the journey and kept up on the work too, did not miss an assignment. Be at least an ally and at most an accomplice by standing personally against all forms of biases and discrimination. It's again, microaggression is not out and out racism. It's not me. It's not somebody calling me the N-word. It's not me calling Cassandra a BIT or a C, the C word, right? See you next Tuesday. Yeah, it's not. No, it's much more subtle and much more. It's just much more subtle, and I say it's much more insidious. I just think it's very insidious. It really is, because and I will say in the beginning, if you don't know, okay, that's ignorance. But once you learn, there's no excuse. So I'm gonna go to questions, and now I want to go to the comments and questions. So if anybody wants to share, if you've had an experience, if you had a personal experience, or if you've been biased towards students. I tell my students I'm biased towards Prius drivers. Because I don't know what is, as soon as you get a Prius and a minivan, they just seem like they stop knowing how to drive. So anybody jump in.
Well, I'll share one experience I had, and I think a lot of microaggressions, unfortunately, are due to ignorance rather than evil intention. I'm thinking of an experience that happened to me 35 years ago at a different institution. I had a very talented African-American student who had a learning disability. Mm-hmm. He was dyslexic. And I talked with him out of class, and I was very inspired by him. He was, like eventually student body president and so forth. And he struggled in my class. And so we would talk after class and I would try to encourage him. And then one day I said, I found an opportunity, a special kind of a program. And I said, you know, this program is really designed for students like you. And what I meant was for talented students with your particular learning disability.
Yeah.
And I learned later, a month or two later, that he was offended by that, because when he heard students like you, it was, oh, that's what Black students should do. So I intended to refer to one thing. I even intended this to be sort of a praise of him. And he heard it in the wrong way. So upon what I learned from that is always be very clear when you're praising that it could not be mistaken
Yes.
for something else. And I think another term which I have not used, but I have heard other people use, is something like, you'll be a credit to your race.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be very cautious about how we even give well-intended comments.
Oh yeah, definitely. And or you're very articulate. I get that a lot. I'm articulate. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Learn the English language is not a hard thing to do. I've been doing it for about 46 years, so it's not a hard concept. Learn the English language. So yeah, no. And you know, and TL, it's good that you said that, because like you said, your intention you really wasn't. But I think we as faculty, because like I said, I know I've said things too. We have to make ourselves very clear. You know, this will be good for a student like you who has a learning disability. This will really help you out a lot. So that way he wouldn't have walked away feeling like this white guy just insulted me, because you weren't even mean it that way, you know? And so and that's what I've had to learn to do myself. I've really had to learn to do this, like really make myself clear. And I usually tell students, tell me now let's do a point of clarification. What did you hear me say? And I do that a lot with students. Tell me, what did you hear me say? So I want to make sure we're clear that you're not walking away feeling offended. Anybody else want to share? Like I said, it's not just even about how you treat a student. It can be how you've been treated.
Go
ahead.
I like that, you know, you made it pretty inclusive, because we all involved in some kind of microaggression, either intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
When you spoke about someone, like the video you showed about this lady yelling at someone who wasn't speaking English, I was at an airport line in the US, and someone was speaking in their language on the phone, but really loud.
Yeah.
And because we were all tired and standing in line, it was very irritating to me and to the people nearby as well. And so when one of the passengers turned around and yelled at him like, "Shut up, turn off that phone," I was happy for once that someone told him to, just because it was just on my nerves.
Yeah.
But now listening to you, the ideal thing would have been to politely ask him to lower his voice,
Yes.
or step out to the corner to talk to whoever he was talking, as opposed to talking on top of his voice and in a different language, and just everyone was tired and irritated.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I actually had a student once who walked in the classroom on the phone and was saying, "Girl, let me tell you." And I mean, literally, I'm in the middle of the lecture and she was doing that. And what I told her, and for a moment, we all looked at her, and I just said, "No, you got to leave. I'll see you next class, because you're not going to walk it." Because see, what I saw when she was doing that was what she was telling me. If I would have let her walk in class, sit down, and get away with that, we were just going to go downhill from there. She would have did this every class. And she walked out. I could tell she was annoyed. She walked out. The next class, she said, "Professor Callahan, can I come in?" I said, "Yes, I told you to come in." I said, "I just wasn't going to have you come in the first night and be disrespectful, because that is just disrespectful. You don't walk in. So you don't walk in. Look, I wouldn't walk into your house, anybody's house, on the phone talking. I went and knock on your door, you open the door and I'm on the phone. No, you don't, we don't do that. You don't just, I got to call you back. I'm at such and such's door. Let me call you back when I'm finished. Bye. And that's it. So you're right. And there are cultures, I know African Americans, for a large part, we're loud people, African Americans, Koreans, because I lived in Korea, very loud people, very loud. And sometimes their culture. And so we just have to be mindful. Even the most, we can be microaggressive. I had a student once try to touch a Muslim student. Walked over and grabbed her, tried to grab her hand. And I was like, no. And I was in slow motion. I was like, no, don't do it. And, you know, because he was getting ready to touch her and she was stepping back and he didn't understand. And I just said, he said, why can't I touch her? I said, dude, this is a cultural thing. She's not being a snob. It's her culture. She can't touch you. You cannot touch her. It's in her culture, it's unclean for her to touch another man that's not in her family or her husband. And he just, he didn't understand that. It really bothered him. And again, he didn't mean anything, but he was really hurt. And I was telling him, yeah, you don't need to be hurt by this. It's just her culture. And look, we work at a school where we're dealing with a lot of students from a lot of different cultures. We do. So we have to be mindful. And if we don't know, we can always ask. You don't have to sit there and say, oh, well, where are you from? Because you don't look like you're an American. But you can just sit there and say, I don't know a lot about your culture. Can you please share your culture with me? And you'll be surprised because a lot of people are happy if I ask Hannah about her culture. I say, Hannah, hi, nice to meet you. And we kind of got into this last time, Hannah, and I was going to tell you, I'm sure your daughter, and what I was trying to say about your daughter, my son is 22. I can take things my son does not want to deal with.
Right.
Your daughter, you can handle, oh, Hannah, you know, I love your accent. Dr. Sandy, I love your accent. Where's that from? Your daughter doesn't want to be treated no different than the other kids in the room. And they don't, students don't. And so unless they're willing to share, so that's why I'm really hesitant to really say much to our students in the classroom. Now, I could tell the difference between a Chinese last name, a Korean last name. I could tell the difference. Koreans do L-E-E, Chinese do L-I, and they both mean Lee or E, however you want to say it. So I tried to, so I can walk up to a Korean student and say, oh yeah, I lived in Korea. And then they'll start sharing their family. And most times when I say to my students, they were like, I've never been to Korea. My parents are from Korea. So it's like, I'm more Korean than them. They don't know, I'm sharing Korean culture, their parents' culture with them. Because what we have to remember, if Hannah's daughter is born in the United States, Hannah's daughter is not from, I'm sorry, Hannah, what country are you from in Africa?
Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone. Hannah's daughter is not from Sierra Leone. Hannah's daughter is really an American. So asking her where she's from, she's like, I'm from LA. I was born in LA. You know, so sometimes we have to be very, very mindful. I had a student, Masuda, her parents were from Afghanistan, but her and her siblings were born here. And that was one thing she said. She said, that's the thing that bothers me most. They always assume that I'm not American. She said, my parents are not American. I'm an American. I was born here. And so we need to ask. We need to ask, but do it in a way where we're not embarrassing students. We need to do it in a way where they feel like, and there's a way you can ask things where people feel like you really want to know and not because you're just trying to be shady or just trying to be rude to somebody. You know, I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot about Sierra Leone. So can you share some things? What's the capital? You know, because I plan on going to Africa one day. And most time I hear people say Africa, they want to go to South Africa, but Africa's a very big continent. There's a lot of places to visit. And Sierra Leone is one of them. Ghana is another. You know, so it's very important that we ask questions. We need to stop making statements like, oh, well, all Asian students are smart. Actually, the highest achievers in post-secondary education are Africans. African students tend to have the highest GPA of anybody. So we're misinformed when we're even saying it. And it makes sure, I had an Asian student, Brian, he was so funny because he didn't do the homework. He told me one day, he said, I'm just an anti-Asian. I said, well, no, you're just you. because he was telling me the expectation of all my professors is I'm going to be the top student in class. And believe me, he was not the top student. He barely showed up to class. But so it's very important that we don't pigeonhole our students. We get it. We have an opportunity to really talk to them and get to know them. Because a lot of things are, we got to hear their stories. It's important that we hear our students' stories. Anybody else want to share anything? I know there's a lot of women here. I want to ask the women, how come you guys don't share with the men in your families about your experiences as women? Because when I do that day with my students, I always ask them, did your mom share with you her experience to your sister? They're like, nope, they don't say nothing. And it really changes their lives when I do that day, when I do that week where the women, I have the women in class share their experiences as women in America, in a misogynistic, sexist society. So that's my question. Anybody want to answer that? Kelly, Brandy, Janine, anybody? Pia?
I think it does depend on how open you were with your family and how your family was open with you. So I'm of the generation where my parents didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's something that I then flipped, and hopefully I've opened that up to my children, my daughter. But it is interesting when you told us the story about the girls going to the restroom. I had no clue where you're going with that. I understood that the women were going together not to chat with each other, but exactly because they needed to be there just to, make sure everything was okay.
It's a safety.
It was interesting because my viewpoint was exactly where the women were.
Yeah, and that wasn't mine. Now I don't even make that joke anymore. I was like, that's not going to play anymore, so I can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example, though, that you used. I like that example.
Well, thank you, because I think it's important. Well, and this is the thing. I don't think people are not going to be open with you if you're not going to be transparent and open with them. They won't be. And so I'm not perfect. I'm not going to pretend I am perfect. I have said things in class that I have regretted. And I'm going to tell you guys something. One thing I've learned to do, if I say it out in front of the class, I'm going to go and apologize in front of class. And a good example was I had a Hispanic student who we were talking about kids in cages, right? And she said one of the most outlandish things in the world to me. And I was so mad at her. I was like, I can't believe she said this about these little kids in cages. But I turned around and I said to her, well, you wouldn't think it's funny if it was your kid, because it could be your kid. And it really, she was offended. And the students in class laughed. I wasn't trying to be funny because I was just upset how she was just so dismissive. Well, the next week I had to apologize. I said, you know what? If I'm going to say something, I'm not going to pull her to the side, pull her into an office and say, I'm sorry for that. I'm going to apologize in front of the entire class. I was rude to this student. You guys all heard me, and I am so sorry. And she told me, she said, I didn't know if I was going to come back to this class, but I really appreciate you apologizing. I said, yeah, I'm going to always apologize in the group. If I say it in the group, I'm going to have to apologize in the group. And that's something we have to remember. We're not perfect. And it's okay to not be perfect, right? It really is. It really. I had to be mindful of how I treat my white male students, because I always assume, because I do politics, y'all. So I'm thinking, oh, they're all Republican, and they're not. And they were thinking, oh, he's a Democrat. And we were just sitting up here making assumptions about. So now what I do is I tell them, I say, look, I'm a political scientist. I don't subscribe to neither one of those parties. Now, will I vote for one over the other? Yeah, because I want my voice to be heard. We have a system where there's only two parties. Yeah, you got to go with the best out of. And if I don't like neither one, I won't vote for neither one. But I still will vote for our senators and our, your mayor. It's important. It's but we tend to make these assumptions. And then in that, I'll make little snide comments, little microaggressive comments. And, and it's just not cool. Because I can do that as a Black man professor to my white male students. So I'm always trying to catch myself, because I don't want any of my students to feel like my class is not a safe space for any of them. And you don't have to agree with me politically. I'm okay with that. because I'm always doing devil's advocate anyway. So if one likes Trump, I hate Trump. If they hate Trump, I like Trump. And I do that all the time. If they like Biden, I can't stand Biden. If they hate Biden, I like Biden. Because I'm trying to get them to be critical thinkers. But I cannot, I have to be mindful of the things I say and how it makes them feel. It's very important. Anyway, would anybody like to share, add anything?
I just want to say thank you for shedding light on microaggressions outside of race, to look at it in relation to gender, to sexual preference, to religion, because there are, more than one way that someone can be microaggressive towards another. So just thank you for that. I give an example of many years ago, when I was in a math class in high school. I was always a year ahead in math. Where those skills went now, I have no idea. But at the time, the class just wasn't picking up on a concept, and our teacher wanted to know where everyone went to school and where they had the previous class. So I mentioned, I came from LA. And at the time I was living in Ontario. He said, oh, that must be it. You learned it in LA. So of course you didn't get the concepts right. So again, it wasn't towards me as a Black student, but more so, from where you came from compared to where you live now must not have been okay. It's not on the correct level because you came from LA.
Oh, geographical. Yeah, you can be very microaggressive based even on location.
Yeah.
I used to do that because I lived in LA and I would drive out to Crafton Hills. I would say stuff to my students all the time. I'm like, you guys live out in the middle of the desert. So my Chafee, my Crafton Hills students, even my Ventura students, I say, yeah, there's nothing out here. You guys got a beach and that's it. I got to go to LA for anything. So you can be a bit of a snob based on where you live. And it has nothing to do with race. Like I said, and a lot of times, it doesn't have to be about race. It could just be about gender. It could be about your sexuality. It could be about your religion. Oh, don't even get us started on religion, right? As Christians, because, and I'm an ordained pastor, so I can get away with this. So I'm going to just go ahead and say this. There's only one way to God. And, if you're not a Christian, you're going to just burn in hell. And I mean, I had a professor say that in class once. I was like, oh my God. And again, and he's telling the students what he perceives to be a Christian. If you're a Baptist, you're good. If you're a Methodist, you're good. But other little groups, and I'm not gonna say which groups, no, they're just cults. And I couldn't believe he said that.
I also want to bring up also, I still get it for my weight a lot.
Oh, yes.
And that's one that's really tough to
Yes.
handle because it still seems to be the okay thing to do.
Weight and
So,
age.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting the age one now too.
Well,
I'm
my
getting
son is
there.
giving me the age one. My son-
Yeah.
So,
No, but again, I thank you for bringing these up because
Yeah.
this was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Thanks a
No,
lot.
definitely. And it's important because, again, when we hear microaggression, it's very important. When we talk about privilege, we always think about white men. No, there's so many different ways to look at things. And we need to expand that because it's the best way to get people to sit down and understand. If we talk about school shootings, always get white men. It's like, no, it's not. But you know what it is? It's always men. It's mostly men. Very rarely do you hear about women killing everybody. But women have PMS and women have all these things. It's really weird. Women are always angry, but you guys don't go around killing everybody. Think about those things. Anyway, you guys, thank you guys so much. It is 1:57. You guys have a great day. It's been great. Take care.
Don't forget to do the survey.
Yeah, please.
Thank you
And
very
don't forget
much.
to join the 2 p.m. session.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. Very good presentation. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Nice to meet you.
You too. I know. I
Have a
can't
good
wait
day,
till we get
sir.
back on campus.
Yeah, great. Great. Excellent.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Hannah, it's good seeing you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care,
Bye.
sir.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just noticed. Thank you so much. This was so educative. Thank
No,
you.
good. Well, no, I enjoy this. I enjoy seeing you guys because, and I'm like, can't wait to get back to campus. I was only going 1 day a week, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
But I was spending the whole day there with you guys. So,
That's wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You take care.
All
Take
right.
care now.
See you all in the 2 o'clock session. If you have
Yes,
questions or
Kashanda, thank you.
information on the,
Good to see you. I love your t-shirt.
thank you, Hannah. Good
I
to see you
know.
too.
Good to see
I
you.
know. I didn't get that email.
So, all right, everyone.
Take care. I know I'm the last one, so I'm waiting till everybody leaves.
Okay.